How to beat Zed in 5 minutes. First of all, we have to understand what kind of champion is Zed and where does his damage come from. Zed is an assassin and he plays the lane a little bit like a mage. So his damage actually comes from mainly his W, in which that he is a spellcaster and can cast his abilities through his W from range without taking damage in return. And in his ult, in which that he can find all-in kill windows on top of you. So everything that you have to do in the lane revolves around understanding where Zed's damage comes from. And if he cannot deal damage, that's when you can be aggressive. This is also something that we show right here in this example, is Zed's level 1, 2, 3, and 4 are incredibly weak because he has very low points in his abilities, and his abilities don't deal that much damage. So my favorite strategy into Zed is actually to go for a 2-wave crash and harass him onto all of his minions. Feel free to level 1, step past the minions, and play really aggressive, possibly even zoning him of a minion of XP or 2. And then what you can do is you can harass him under tower when he tries the last hit. Don't harass him onto the melee minions, harass him onto the casters. Use the time that the melee minions are under the tower to actually get a good warding window for yourself so you don't get caught off guard by a random level 2, level 3 gank by the enemy jungle. So after early lane, around level 5, 6, it's gonna get tricky. And to beat Zed, you have to understand what Zed wants to do. Zed is a champion that revolves around the concept of threat. Does he have kill threat onto you? Yes, then he's going to be a problem. Does he not have kill threat onto you? Then he's actually going to be completely useless. So we have to make sure that we stay healthy, stay high health, so he never has real kill threat onto us. How do we do that? By understanding how to avoid his damage. His damage in the lane, his traits are mainly revolved around his W. Usually Zed cannot 100 to 0 you. So he has to butter you up first with his Ws. So what we have to understand is how to mitigate damage taken from his traits with his Ws. There's a few ways that we can do that. First of all, we have to understand that his W has a 20-second cooldown, which is incredibly long. We have to be timing this cooldown very precisely, because this is where all of his damage will be coming from. 20-second cooldown onto his W means that he's going to be able to use it about once per wave. And there's a very specific thing about his W. His W can actually be baited out because the place where the damage really comes from is the ability that he throws during the W. And most of the time, his W is going to be unavoidable, especially if he's going to be timing that with a creep, with last hit, with CS. But what you can do is you can avoid his abilities. His Qs are still skill shots. And if you're going to get hit by only one of the Q instead of by both Qs, you're actually going to be in a completely fine position. So your goal, whenever you're playing against Zed, is to make sure that you only get hit by one of the Ws, make sure that he cannot proc his electrocute, make sure that both of his Qs do not connect, and then you're actually going to be able to stay relatively safe and relatively healthy, because he can only do this every 20 seconds, so once per wave. And you're going to be able to get control whenever his W is down. Make sure you don't get hit by both parts of the Q, so the electrocute doesn't proc it. Another big tip is going to be running bone plating. If you're going to be running bone plating has a 55-second cooldown, while Zed's W has a 20-second cooldown. So running bone plating is going to allow you to negate the damage out of 1 out of every 3 of his Ws, which is a lot. And it's going to make it really hard for Zed to get you low and proc your HP down consistently. What we have to know about Zed is that he has no sustain in his kit. So every bit of damage that we deal to the Zed will actually stick on top of him. If you combine that with the previous amount of information that I just told you guys, that means that the key to beating Zed is actually taking very slow 100 to 0, okay, small wins traits into him. Make sure that you slowly chip away at his HP bar and make sure that you lose less in return so you stay outside of his kill threat. If a champion like Zed is lower on HP, it's going to be much harder for him to find all-in windows on top of you, which is then going to reduce his threat on top of you, which is going to give you more lane control. As a final tip, whenever you're playing against Zed, he is going to sometimes have the opportunity to ult you. He is going to get opportunities in which that he can potentially kill you. What you have to understand, if he ults, right, the most important thing to do is dodge out on the Qs. Flash the Qs. That's where the damage comes from in the ults. That's what is going to be redirected by the ults. The E and the out attacks don't deal that much damage. It's mainly all the Qs that are going to be dealing damage because he can get up to 3 Qs onto you. So make sure you flash the Qs if he ever gets onto you with an R, and then you're going to be completely fine. So to conclude, how do we actually beat Zed? First of all, levels 1 to 5, try to be very aggressive, pressure him, and try to punish him onto his last hits. Then try to stay healthy afterwards and make sure that he never gets kill threat on top of you. If he ever ults you, make sure that you flash his Qs. That's where the most amount of his damage comes from. Usually, scaling up is going to be completely fine because most Zeds aren't competent enough in the mid to late game to actually carry the game themselves. Zed is a very hard champion, very skill shot reliant. So if you can get to the mid to late game even or slightly ahead, you're going to be in a fantastic position. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I'll definitely get back to you.